What's up, you guys? Justin Reese here. Tonight we are talking about the Panasonic G85, GX85, and GX850, known in other parts of the world. I think this is the G80, the GX80, and maybe the GX800. I know this looks like a Sony. That's because it is. I had to send the GX850 back, but this is standing in and very, very similar. So it's going to help me when we're talking about these things. So we're going to try and get into what's different and what's same between these and why you might pick the different ones. Let's talk about sensors. Well, they all basically have the same 16 megapixel micro four thirds sensor. The sensor does pretty well in low light. The nice thing is the lower the megapixels, meaning you typically means that the better it is in low light. That's why you'll find something like the Sony A7S with a 12 megapixel full frame sensor. The less megapixels you have, the bigger those megapixels can be and the more light that they can grab. So I'm happy that these aren't like 24, 28 or 30 something megapixels. It's nice because micro four thirds is a smaller sensor than a crop sensor and a chunk smaller than a full frame sensor. So less megapixels mean that they all do reasonably well at low light. Let's talk about screens. G85 has the kind of flip out, fully articulating screen. That means that you can go up, you can go down, you can vlog with it and be able to see yourself with the camera. Definitely my favorite option out of all of these. The GX85 basically has, it tilts kind of up and down to be able to, see this way, but there's no way that you can flip this to be able to see the screen for yourself. These are both 3-inch screens. The GX850 has a slightly smaller screen, but it flips up to be able to kind of do that selfie mode and be able to see yourself. And then that means you can kind of tilt it down. You can't, if you're going up like this, there's not like a good option for that. But yeah, generally pretty handy to be able to do the selfie screen side of it. Let's talk about microphone inputs. If you're into vlogging and you want to have better audio, especially if you're going to be outside or anywhere where it's windy, it's nice to be able to put a microphone on top with those big furry, it's called dead cat, I think windjammer is another term for it. G85 is the only one with a microphone input, so you can throw a microphone on top. Both of these, the GX85 and GX850, there is no microphone input on either of these. So you're stuck with the onboard audio or using something externally, recording to recorder or something and syncing that up in post. In-body image stabilization. G85 has the dual IS2. Basically, it has 5-axis image stabilization where actually the sensor inside the camera moves, plus it can work with the lens image stabilization, and both those things work together to make really, really smooth footage. Dual IS2. GX85 has dual IS, not the version 2. Honestly, from shooting with both these cameras, I struggle to tell the difference between the two, although I'm pretty sure this one adds an electronic stabilization as well, where it actually crops the image a little bit, and that works with both those image stabilization. It can be really smooth. I could be wrong, but I don't think this has the electronic image stabilization. The GX850, no in-body image stabilization. It just relies on whatever the lens has. So if you're looking for that stable handheld footage, definitely these two are options. Let's talk about kind of size. I don't remember the exact weight, but it's kind of all relative. The G85 is definitely the biggest out of all of them. It's also going to be slightly heavier. It's a magnesium chassis for a lot of it. It is also weather sealed, kind of dust and moisture proof. So that means it's kind of best in the other elements. These two cameras are not weather sealed, but I'll tell you the GX85 still feels quite hefty. I mean, when you're looking kind of at the size difference between these two cameras, it's the GX85 is a little bit smaller. I thought it was going to be a lot smaller until I got it. I had a G7, which is kind of the previous version of this, and I shot tons of videos with that. I got the G85 and it was pretty similar, and I always had in my mind that the GX series was much smaller. That's not really the case. I would say the grip is a little bit smaller and it's a little bit shorter, but the G85 is kind of pretty similar size-wise between these two if you were to take off the grip. But honestly, I like having this chunky grip to make sure that it's secure in my hand and I'm holding on to it. I actually honestly wish that they had pushed the grip out a little bit further, but again, I think they were trying to keep it compact, but it doesn't feel like you maybe have quite as much to grab onto it. The GX850, I have a whole review on that, is like a chunk smaller. It actually reminded me very much of this is the Sony A5100, but it's more of like a GM series, which was previously in Panasonic's lineup, like a very compact version. And so it doesn't seem like the GX8 or the GX85. It seems much more compact. And so if you're looking for the lightest, smallest option, then hey, you got something here. What else can we say about these cameras? You've got dual dials on both of these, so you can control shutter speed and aperture at the same time. The G85 has this one extra dial up here, which is kind of handy for switching between modes, which I really like. You don't have that on here. You got to kind of get it through the menu. A lot more function buttons and more controls here, whereas the GX850, just simply because of the size of it, you don't get the same level of controls on it. Viewfinders on both of these, meaning you can look in and do this. No viewfinder here on the GX850. It's actually surprisingly similar to this A5100 in so many different ways. Other than that, let's talk about video quality. Between all of these, the video quality is basically identical. Photo quality between all of them, basically identical. They all kind of have the same modes too. They shoot 4K at 100 megabit per second. They shoot, MP4, 1080p at, kind of between, I think, somewhere 17, 28 megabit per second. But basically, video quality, you're not going to see a difference between these, except for those things where in-body image stabilization, and then the audio quality on this is obviously going to be better if you hook up a mic and different things. But, more stable footage, but if you were stabilizing in some other way, you're putting on a tripod, you would not be able to tell the difference in video quality between these. 99% of you, there may be some slight tweaks in slightly newer versions, here are things there, but basically identical when it comes to video quality. I think that's mostly the differences between them. Ooh, I guess it's really about, hey, what should you get? Well, obviously budget is a factor. You've got, we'll say cheap or cheapest. I know this isn't necessarily cheap for everybody, but compared to a lot of other cameras, this packs so many good features into it. I can't remember the exact prices in the US. I'm going to say this is around $1,000. This is around $700, and this is around $500. I'll flash them up on the screen what the actual prices are. For me, I mean, if you have the budget, I would say get the G85. Even if you were really conscious of size, these are all relatively small cameras, especially if you've ever worked with like a big size DSLR. The G85 is getting close to DSLR size, but it's still a chunk smaller because it is mirrorless, except for maybe some of the new like ultra compact DSLRs. But you can hold on to it really well. It's got that flip out screen that is the most flexible for everything that you need to do. Still got the viewfinder. It's got the most dials for controls, which may be overwhelming when you're starting out, but at some point you'll find those handy. It's got the in-body image stabilization, which is really nice. It's got that microphone input on it, which these other ones don't have. And it's got the weather sealing, so like dust and moisture resistant. So, I mean, as far as features, it's definitely got the most on it. I struggle a little bit with this GX85. I mean, I shot some video on it and it looked beautiful. Also looks beautiful on either one of these. In-body image stabilization works well with the lenses, but it's not that much smaller, and I was expecting it to be smaller. And not having that microphone input, especially when they've got like the hot shoe here, I'm sure they could have crammed one in here. That would have been nice, but I think that's maybe a little bit more of a marketing ploy. But, not having a screen that you can see yourself kind of puts it out for vlogging, which is really handy these days. And again, no microphone input. So, I don't know. Like, if I own this camera and I didn't vlog, I wouldn't, like, make myself upgrade to this one because there's other ways around those audio solutions. But, yeah, like, video quality-wise between these two, it's going to be very similar. They stabilize similarly with the in-body image stabilization. Video quality looks relatively the same. The GX850 is really the, I guess, run-and-gun light vlogger camera. I've got a whole review about this, and I think there's some better options. One, I think, is this, if you can afford it, and if you can handle that slightly bigger size. If you need something really small on the Panasonic platform, yeah, I get it, especially if you, as far as a little, like, vlogging rig, if you can, get one of these 7 to 14 millimeters for cheap, throw that on the front of the GX850, you've got a pretty small, light vlogging rig. You just got to deal with that audio, which, there's ways around that and things you can put on the microphones to make it better. That ends up being okay. You could also look at the Panasonic LX10, which has a slightly smaller 1-inch sensor, but actually a faster piece of glass that comes with it. Not interchangeable lenses, but as far as just a little vlogging camera, works out good. But hopefully that makes sense and kind of the differences between them. To recap, weather sealed, in-body image stabilization, microphone input. This one has the in-body image stabilization, no microphone input, no screen to be able to see yourself with. This one has the selfie screen, no microphone input, no in-body stabilization. That's kind of overall the main feature differences between them. As always, any questions in the comments, love it if you like these videos, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and hope to talk with you guys about this online. If you have one of these cameras, I'd love to hear from you on why you picked which one you did, what you love about it, maybe what you wish was different, how you feel about it, would you want to try a different one. As always, I'm Justin Rivas, thanks for watching.